A U.S. embassy in West Africa recently uncovered a network, 100 foreigners who reportedly were participating in a scheme like that. Pleased to bring in an expert in this. Wrote the #1 New York Times bestselling book on the subject, Peter Schweizer, author of The Invisible Coup. He's also the president of the Government Accountability Institute. Peter, a pleasure. Welcome into the program today, sir.
Thanks. Great to be with you, Bianca. Thanks for having me.
It's alarming as we await the Supreme Court decision. Putting that aside, you have really uncovered exactly what is happening here. I want to pick up first about Mexico. 2024, your book talks about a report, active lawmakers in Mexico living here. Tell us about our foreign adversaries also who are underneath our eyes and what the damage is.
Yeah, we've been having this national debate about immigration, which is very important, but what we've ignored is what I call weaponized immigration, and that is foreign powers, some that are enemy powers, I would argue, like China, some that are hostile neighbors like Mexico, who see mass migration as a weapon, meaning not only do they want people to immigrate to the United States, they see it as a political opportunity to erode America's sovereignty. And so in the case of Mexico, I literally quote dozens of Mexican officials, senators, presidents, former presidents of Mexico, saying that they want mass migration to the United States because it erodes our sovereignty. They're creating political networks inside the United States that are designed to serve the interests of Mexico, not the interests of the United States. So they see it as a means to a specific strategic end, and they're quite effective at doing so.
And people need to wake up. China and also the Muslim Brotherhood. Of course, the United States has moved to designate them as a U.S. terror organization. But you mentioned, and I think we want to drill down a little bit more, why this is so political, because we also know there's the EB-5 investor visa program. So you get green cards in exchange for financial investments. And I know you're a critic of those, and it seems like there's enough evidence as why they are concerning, especially with people with deep pockets, bad intentions are allowed access.
Yeah, you know, look, as you mentioned earlier, there is this debate. Somebody comes into the country illegally. Maybe they lived here for 20 years. They have a couple of kids. Should those kids have U.S. citizenship? What we're talking about in the case of birth tourism or the EB-5 visa program is people that have absolutely no connection to the United States. They haven't lived here. They don't necessarily want to live here, but they want their kids to have citizenship, or they want to get visa permanent resident status. Why do they want that? Number one, citizens, doesn't matter if you've never lived here, you'll be able to vote in future elections. And the estimates out of China are China has more than 1 million, quote unquote, U.S. citizens. These are children that were brought here. They were given birth here by their mothers. They were flown back to China, raised in China. There's more than 1 million of these in China that are U.S. citizens. And when they turn 18, they're going to be able to vote in our elections. The EB-5 program, this is a visa that says if you invest $1 million, you get permanent resident status. If you're a permanent resident of the United States, even if you don't live here, it's legal for you to donate to political campaigns. So there's tens of millions of dollars of foreign money legally coming into political campaigns because of this weaponized immigration.
Yeah, it is a subject I think that's not getting enough coverage. I know you're an authority on it, and I know that it will be front and center when the Supreme Court birthright citizen ruling comes down, because this really could actually shape immigration policy to protect us from some of these things that you're talking about. How much weight do you give that? I know this administration is trying to obviously balance the H-1B visas, but also pushing for the end of this abuse, which you so clearly have talked about, which could be the demise of our great nation, of people who have no interest of doing anything here except potential harm, Peter.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, look, the Supreme Court, they seemed a little skeptical that Donald Trump's executive order on the 14th Amendment was too sweeping. I'm not an attorney, but that's what seems to be the case. I'm hoping that the court comes back at a minimum and says, okay, you cannot with an executive order just make this broad sweeping statement that the 14th Amendment doesn't apply anywhere. However, I'm hoping they're going to say Congress can pass laws to limit the scope of this, right? In other words, if this is birth tourism, if you are lying on a visa, you're flying here, you're giving birth.